I start the day with a cup of coffee. And by the way, the coffee, as I have continued to conclude, it's one of the holy trinity beverages: water, tea, and coffee. No matter what field you're looking at, whether you're looking at cancer, whether you're looking at diabetes, whether you're looking at longevity, whether you're looking at overall fitness, coffee seems to be good for you. Okay. I was told in medical school, coffee is not that great for the heart. It could actually give you arrhythmias and there's too much caffeine in it. The bioactives in coffee, which you would find as a common denominator from Ethiopia, which is where we think coffee originally came from, to Greek coffee, which is actually Turkish coffee, is pretty loaded with caffeine. So you got to be careful about that. But it's also loaded with these polyphenols like chlorogenic acid. And chlorogenic acid does amazing things to your metabolism, to your blood vessels, to lower inflammation, and just tip the odds in your favor towards longevity with a simple cup of coffee in the morning.
Is that usually what you have to start off the day?
Every day.
A cup of coffee.
A cup of coffee. The stronger, the better. Now, listen, this is me, all right? And personalized nutrition, I always say when I'm on a podcast, the most useful thing I can do is to tell you the facts, like science, or I can just tell you what I do. And for me, a really nice cup of coffee, straight up. I don't put cream. I don't put dairy. And I also don't even put nut milk or, any of those, or oat milk or anything else. And I like my coffee straight. Part of that came from the fact that when I spent time in Italy and Greece, I would just have like an espresso in the morning or a very strong coffee in the morning. And it's a pick-me-up. It does not break my intermittent fasting from the night before, because as long as you don't put any sugar or anything else in it, you're just soaring through. Your body, your metabolism is still powering through, burning harmful extra body fat overnight and continuing into the day. And it's not until you actually eat something with real calories in it, which could be could be piece of fruit or yogurt, any of these other things we talked about. But, so I do skip breakfast every now and then, but I like a simple cup of coffee as the anchor to how I start my day.
What about some of these other foods that you often see people eating here in the United States and contrasting those? Things like oatmeal, things like eggs, things like orange juice. What's your feeling on those?
You're asking the right question, but I really want to frame it. I'm not going to actually tell you, like oats are universally good or bad. Like that's the religion of food. For example, oatmeal, which is, basically cooked or steamed or boiled oats, actually contains a lot of bioactives from oats. And this is recent research I've done. We presented at medical conferences where we took whole oats, the kind you have in amino skin cream and the kind you would have in oatmeal. We've extracted out the concentration of the bioactives. So what are the bioactives in oats? Well, one of them is called avenanthromide. Okay. The other one is beta-glucan, which is the same thing you'd find in mushrooms and barley. Two really potent substances. And we decided to do some medical research by testing what can these oat bioactives do. So people talk about inflammation and all that stuff. I'm a scientist, so I wanted to see it for myself. So we collaborated with a group out of the University of Arizona and a standard model to look at wound healing. Now, I have a background in biotech, and wound healing is a big problem in people with diabetes, in nursing homes, in the intensive care units. You got skin breakdown, bed sores. People with diabetes wind up having wounds in their feet they get gangrenous and they have to get amputated. So one of my passions, but also areas of expertise, is how can we support healing, wound healing faster, right? So we talk about healing, right? So, okay, oat bioactives, if you inject them into the wound, in the border of a wound, and this is a lab experiment, we were so surprised. It doubled the rate of healing. It zipped the wound shut. And then when we did the medical research to food as medicine research, we did a deep dive into the tissue that healed. And what we found? Oat bioactives completely suppressed inflammation. Bingo, box checked, proven. Okay, I saw it myself. Number one. Number two, it generated more healing blood vessels. That's my wheelhouse. Angiogenesis, how the body grows blood vessels. Oats can actually stimulate healing by nurturing those blood vessels that we need for healing and lowering inflammation. And then something that was surprising to us is that in the lab, when we did this, used extracted from oats, injected into a wound, doubled the healing, We also discovered that the wound that healed was scarless.
Mm.
And scarless healing is a holy grail for anybody, any surgeon, any medical device company, any pharmaceutical company. We'd never seen this before. And we wouldn't have discovered it if we didn't actually take what Mother Nature had, pull it out, and put it into a standard medical test system. This is what like people always, talk about food as medicine. I'm one of the dudes that actually does it.
Mm.
And so when we looked at it, how could you get scarless healing? I mean, like we looked under the microscope and this baby had this healed wound, had no scar, no inflammation, plenty of nourishing blood vessels, but it had no scar. When you actually looked at the collagen, and I know this is the topic that you've also talked about, and we can talk about it some more about collagen. Collagen is normally in tissue. It's a beautiful woven pattern. If you've ever had a beautiful oriental rug or tapestry on your wall or your window, like that's weaving. And when collagen is woven perfectly, there's no scar. So we looked at this. There was no scar. The collagen was woven perfectly in the healed wound with more blood vessels and no inflammation. Okay. And then we took it one step further. We found that the Oats bioactives recruited stem cells for healing. Okay. So I just took you through, like over a year worth of research, but I gave you the kind of the top line on this. So that changed my view towards oatmeal. Okay.
Did you have a negative view on it before? Or you had a more neutral?
I had a neutral view.
Okay.
Listen, I grew up, I remember my parents used to buy those prepackaged oatmeal envelopes.
Quaker Oats packets,
whatever
or whatever
the brand was, I can't remember. But, they had little dried fruit chips in it and they had flavoring and
sugar, all sorts of stuff.
God knows what else was in there. Okay. Because I wasn't paying attention when I was a kid.
Right.
Now I do. So I, like with my situationally aware approach to food, where I always tell everybody, please, if you're going to buy something in a box or in a package or a sealed envelope, look at the ingredient label. Like I do that now, but I look back and I'm like, you know what? I don't know how good that prepackaged stuff was for me because it was an ultra processed food. I didn't think about it that way. But so I had a little bit neutral to questioning, a little suspicious about this. But now I know oats by itself has some really powerful things that could be unlocked, which we've done. But back to the oatmeal. How do you, like oatmeal is an oatmeal. You could buy rolled oats, in a canister, and that's all there is to it. Please look at the ingredient label, which is what I do now. Now that I've made these research discoveries, I'm eating oatmeal every now and then. Not every single day, but
sure.
Like if I had a choice, I'm going to make my own with just water. I still don't put dairy in it. And then, I'll take some dried fruits because I know there's other bioactives, dried cranberries to get the allagitannins and anthocyanins. I'll get all that stuff, or crushed nuts.
Right.
You get some dietary fiber, get some healthy monounsaturated fatty acids, good for my cholesterol. I'm trying to think about, this whole idea of how do you start your day? Back to the question you asked. How can one start one's day in the healthiest way possible? For me, cup of coffee, I don't adulterate it. I know what's in it. It's got chlorogenic acid. It's good for so many aspects of health and longevity. It adds to my quality of life. So that's part of my health span and lifespan. Coffee, by the way, slows down the rate of cellular aging as well. So that's been studied in people. Phenomenal. I don't think too much about it. I just get my cup of joe. But
you have it. You enjoy it.
But I enjoy it. Okay. And that's at the end of the day, the most important thing. I know that oatmeal with this research could be beneficial, but it depends on how you get it and what you put in it. And so, it's all in the details, right? So like the quality of the product that you're having. But enough for me, if I can get Greek yogurt, I might have it every now and then. I don't have it every day. Other than the coffee, there's probably no single thing that I do every single day because I love diversity. And, like in my books, I've written about 200 or 300 foods. I love to choose from them. It's kind of like I feel like I'm the kid in the candy shop of health every single day. From the time I wake up and the choices I make, I just have a lot of fun picking things that I love that are good for me.
I think that really the message of what you're sharing here is that it's not good and bad foods. Generally, when you're talking about whole foods, minimally processed, and actually it goes back to how processed is it? If it's super adulterated, you can take anything that actually could be a great food for you or a part of a healthy diet. If somebody is largely eating whole foods, getting their steps in, doing some resistance training, and they want some oatmeal, and that's their preferred way to get carbohydrates, and it's not filled with a ton of sugar. But even if they want to put a little bit of honey or maple syrup and they're putting nuts in and other stuff, they're going to be a healthy person, right? It's only when we rely heavily on these ultra processed forms in all areas of our life. You mentioned how coffee can be great for us. And there's some people out there that are drinking coffee and it's truly maybe 30 grams, 20 grams of sugar every single morning, day in and day out. And that's not the only thing that they're doing. There's food dyes in there. There's syrups. There's other stuff. And then that leads to the next thing. They might have 2 lattes in a day. Then there might be a lot of processed foods in the diet. So it's really about how we approach these things. Sorry to interrupt, but memory loss is on the rise. And that's why I've created a free guide that you can get right now featuring the top brain boosting foods that you can include into your diet starting today to help you combat this. I've worked with a few of my friends to feature 5 foods in this free guide. And guess what? A couple of them will probably surprise you. Make sure you're one of the people that focuses on keeping your brain sharp by downloading this guide today. Just click on the link below or scan the QR code and I'll send you the guide right away.
You're right. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. But one thing I want to do for anybody listening to this is to try to bring a little bit of discipline and clarity to this idea of the use of the word processed and ultra processed, because I think we, those of us who talk about it all the time, we understand what we're trying to say. But I think for people who are listening, sometimes there's some confusion. What's what's processed versus ultra processed? And what I tell people is that we very rarely eat raw ingredients one at a time. Maybe an exception is a salad bar, or a fruit plate. You're eating every forkful is like one thing. A little thing of lettuce, a little tomato, a little watermelon or a pineapple. Most of the time, the foods that we eat, the food I enjoy, is cooked, prepared. Whether it's Chinese food, Indian food, Mexican food, Spanish food, Italian food, it's prepared. And that means that you're taking raw ingredients and doing something with it, which is processing it. So you ever see how they make homemade pasta? Get a big amount of flour, make a little hole in it like a volcano crater, crack a couple of eggs, and just use your fingertips to start working it until it actually firms up, and then you roll it out. Okay, so that's like grandma in Italy making pasta the way it's been done for thousands of years.
Right.
That's processed. You're processing the food.
Minimally processed, a lot of people say.
Minimally processed, right. But the point is that like homemade, like that, with fresh ingredients, could be technically considered processed. Sure. But that's not what we're talking about when we talk about the foods that we should be more careful about. Now, there's so much discussion about the food industry, and I want to maybe touch on that just a little bit, but ultra-processed foods are not the foods you make at home, like manipulate at home to turn into a meal. Those are the ones that are made in a big factory and where machines are extruding ingredients and converting ingredients into forms and shapes like animal crackers, for example, that wouldn't naturally occur in nature, and then add lots of chemicals to them, emulsifiers, preservatives, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, added sugar. That's another one, okay? And this is all transparently on the ingredient label, but hidden in plain sight to the consumer. And so ultra-processed foods are a choice that many of us have been, I would say, conditioned to reach for because of how we grew up in our society. Something out of a box that tastes really great and it's sweet and it's not very expensive. So maybe your mom bought a lot of it and it's in your pantry, maybe for months and months and months. Like food it's not supposed to last that long, okay? And it's all engineered for convenience, shelf life, longer it lasts, better is for consumers, so to speak. That's what they make us believe, or certainly for the grocery store. And it's cheap and it's available, right? And then it's engineered to really make you crave it, right? So I don't call it a conspiracy. Companies do what companies do. That's what they're trying to do. Their job is to create stuff, for their shareholders who are actually counting on them to create stuff. The responsibility comes to us as consumers to make those healthy choices, right? I mean, look, you get in a car every day and you drive to your work or whatever. Up to you if you're going to actually speed and endanger yourself and other people, or you're going to drive in the speed limit. And so these are choices we make. We make good choices and we can make bad choices. But if every day you choose to make a choice that puts you in danger, okay? And I think that's really where this modern sensibility is like all this stuff that we just thought was our lives, ultra processed foods. There's a danger element to them. I think we're beginning to wake up as a society to ask questions about that. And at the end of the day, it's up to us to make those good choices.
YouTube, if you enjoyed what you just saw, keep watching for more great content on how to improve your brain and your life.
How do I do it? Which diet do I take? What supplement should I take? What I say is that what you got to realize is that we all have it hardwired in ourselves to be able to have that operating system to get back to health.